everyone. Happy Wednesday. See if this is working. All right. Welcome. My name is Crystal Cargus, and I am jumping on live today to talk about something that is super helpful for moms in particular. So if you are a mama and you have a family that you are taking care of, I hope that you might find some of this information helpful. So if you're joining live, please feel free to say hello in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. I'm going to be jumping in and talking all about meal planning today and how implementing meal planning or how meal planning can help save your motherhood. This is something that has helped me a lot in taking care of my own family. I'm a mama of 5 kiddos, and feeding our families is a big part of motherhood. It's something that we do every day on an ongoing basis, right? It is a never-ending task of feeding our families. And even if you have children that are in school or daycare, you're still responsible for planning and preparing their meals for the most part. I know I'm kind of generalizing, but for a lot of moms, meals and mealtime and knowing what to prepare for your family can be really stressful or cause a lot of stress. And if you're a mama and you're watching this, I'd love to hear just kind of your perspective on this. What does planning meals look like in your family? And if you're anything like me, you know that this can be something that kind of sneaks up on you at the last minute, right? So any moms out there that are looking in your refrigerator at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. at the end of the day, or when you get home from work, or when you finally have gotten everyone home from school and all everyone's different events, and you're kind of looking in the fridge and wondering, what do I make for dinner? Has anyone thought of that question or thought that question? Or, even if you don't necessarily have a big family, but you're still, you still have to eat, your kids have to eat, your significant other has to eat. And oftentimes this is the question that leaves everyone kind of boggled sometimes, like, what should I make for dinner? Or what should I eat right now? And you might have a refrigerator full of groceries and still not really know what to put together. And that can be the really frustrating thing too. You might have a lot of things on hand, but if there's no really planning or preparing ahead of time, knowing what to make or throw together, especially at the last minute, can be really frustrating sometimes. And oftentimes, if there's not a plan in place, what tends to happen? It tends to be, well, let's just go out, which is not a bad thing. I don't want to put that down at all, because I think there's definitely room for that. But if that's always your go-to, then you're never really having the opportunity to sit at home or have family meals as much. And, sometimes it just takes a little bit of planning to really get your family on a good routine. And I know this is hard. So I am definitely speaking to you as a mama who understands how busy life gets and how hard it is sometimes to make time for these things like meal planning, preparing meals, getting things together in a routine that works for everyone. I know it's hard, especially when you have multiple family members and you're juggling a lot of different schedules. So I definitely understand that. And I just want to share some helpful tips that might make meals a little easier for you, whatever your situation might be. So let's talk about meal planning, because I think meal planning kind of gets a bad rap sometimes. And sometimes there's negative associations with meal planning. So if you're listening live, or even if you're watching this replay later, I would love to hear from you in the comments. What are some of the things you think about when you hear meal planning? And I know a lot of moms that I've worked with, when we talk about meal planning, they just feel overwhelmed right off the bat. Like, there's no way I can dedicate a whole day just to prepping a bunch of food and making it look all nice and neat in different containers and having everything set for the week. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about, but I think that is definitely the perception of meal planning. Like a Pinterest perfect organization method, which, I mean, that's great too. If you do that, I don't want to dog on that. But I'm just saying, I think a lot of moms, when they hear about meal planning, that's kind of what they think in their head, and that feels really overwhelming. And meal planning is really just straight, like it sounds, like planning for meals ahead of time. And you can put as much or little time into that as you want. And I know for some moms, it is helpful to do some pre-prepping, like when I'm thinking of preparing, like maybe batch cooking, like big pots of brown rice or chicken or vegetables that you can kind of use throughout the week. And that's great too. I love that. But that's not necessarily what I am referring to when I'm talking about meal planning. With meal planning, I'm really just talking about having some plan of what your week is going to look like when it comes to your meals. And really what you're doing when you're meal planning is you're creating a roadmap for yourself for the week. And there's a lot of resistance to that sometimes. And if you're listening to this conversation, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What makes you resist the idea of meal planning, if that's something that you've tried in the past or you want to try? For a lot of moms that I've worked with, I hear a lot of different things. And even from myself in past experiences, I know in the past, I would always think, well, what if I make a plan and things come up, or, I can't make it work for some reason? And that's a big kind of pushback that I hear a lot. And I don't think the goal of meal planning is to have something super rigid that you're like married to and you have to implement this. Another thing I hear too is, well, what if I plan for having a certain meal and then nobody feels like having that meal that day? Or, what if nobody wants to eat it? Or, what if we just feel like going out or want something different? And I think it's okay to realize that when you have a meal plan, it doesn't mean, again, that it has to be something super rigid. Really, a meal plan is just kind of serving as a roadmap, like a guide. It's helping you have something more efficient to work with so that you're not feeling boggled down with that question of, what do I make for dinner? Or what do I give the kids right now? Or what should we eat? Because personally, from my experience, I don't think there's anything more stressful as a mom than facing that question, especially towards the end of the day. I think I'm saying dinners because in general, I think dinners tend to be harder, but it could be anything. It could be your breakfast, or it could be lunches. When there is not a plan in place, it just leaves a big void that makes food a lot more chaotic. And then all of a sudden you're scrambling, you're trying to put things together, you're trying to throw things together at a whim. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing those things, but if you want to free up more mental space for yourself to really focus on the things that are most important to you, if you want to simplify meal times, if you really want to optimize your family's nutrition, then meal planning can be a really resourceful tool for you. So I want you to consider it and just be open to some of these ideas that I might share for you. And again, if you're listening, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about this. So when it comes to meal planning, again, it doesn't have to be something super elaborate. But like I said, you can make it as detailed or as simple as you want it to be. But really, I encourage simple. Like, start simple, especially if you are not used to meal planning or you haven't really done a whole lot of meal planning. I always encourage to just start really simple. Start where you're at. And remember, it doesn't have to be a whole plan that you're married to or obligated to throughout the week. But it is going to give you something to work with so that you have ideas that you can easily turn to during the week for dinners, again, lunches, breakfast. Hey, Brittany, thanks for joining. So first, before I give you some tips with meal planning, I just want to give you 3 main reasons why meal planning is important and how meal planning can help save your motherhood. And what I mean by that is simplify. As moms, again, like we are responsible for so many different things and we are juggling so many different things, multitasking galore. I mean, even as we're speaking, I have like 20 tabs open on my computer and it drives my husband crazy. But, we're always like working on different things, thinking about different things. And so, if we can make food and how we're serving meals to our family any simpler, then it can free up so much mental space to focus on other things, and to actually enjoy food and eating with our family. And when there is a little bit of thought and preparation into the meals that you're serving, then that can really go a long way. So that's kind of my first reason why meal planning can help save your motherhood, is that it frees up mental space to focus on what really matters. And not to say that eating doesn't matter, because obviously eating is a big part of nurturing a healthy family. But when there's a lot of stress and chaos surrounding meals for your family, like I said, if mealtime always feels stressful, or if putting together meals for your family feels really stressful, then that's going to take up a lot of mental energy for you that you can't be using for other things. So, I really feel like meal planning is something that takes a lot of the guesswork out of that, so that, again, that you're not having to spend time during the middle of a day, or especially towards the end of the day when the kids are tired, you're tired, you kind of want to wrap up things and gently transition everyone to bedtime. But, what we like to call the witching hour, that late afternoon before dinner where everyone kind of seems to be falling apart. If you're a mama and you experience witching hour, let me know, because it's a real thing. But again, if you have some kind of plan in place that you can easily utilize and refer to, then you're not having to spend so much energy during that part of your day trying to put things together, figuring out what to serve everyone. Like there's already something in place, and you just kind of go into automate mode and put it together. Cooking is one thing, but knowing what you're going to cook makes preparing meals so much easier. So that's my first reason, is that it can really free up mental space to focus on the things that really matter to you. Second, meal planning helps you save time and money with groceries and at the grocery store. Yeah, Brittany, I've always heard it as witching hour. Yes, it's a thing. It's kind of like just that late part of the afternoon where everyone just kind of seems to be falling apart. I don't know. I for sure experienced that with my kids. And you don't want to have to be thinking about, like, what do I feed everyone when that's happening, right? Okay, so anyway, back to my second reason. Meal planning really helps you save time and money with groceries and at the grocery store. So think about when you run into the grocery store, and usually for me, because we have 5 kids, I try to split up our kids with my husband. So I might take a couple to the store, and I try to avoid taking all 5 of them if possible, just because it makes it really crazy. Or we go together because, tag teaming 2 against 5 is a lot easier than 1 against 5. So anyway, if you have gone into the store without a plan in place and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to buy the things that, I think we need, how much more money do you end up spending on groceries? Or what might happen is you spend a ton of money on groceries and things that you are thinking you're going to use, but then come to the end of the week and you realize, oh my gosh, I never used that, or that went bad, or we didn't end up eating that. And that, you might end up throwing a ton of food away just because you didn't really have a plan for how you were going to use it. And I know for me too, I mean, when I go to the grocery store with a list versus going into the grocery store without a list, it's like a world of a difference with how much money we will end up spending on groceries. So if you want to maximize your family's budget for food and for meals, you definitely want to have some kind of tool that you can be using. Because if you plan out some meals and then know from that plan, like, okay, these are the groceries that I need to buy, you are going to spend a lot less at the store and you're going to have a lot less food waste too. I know for me, and sometimes you just can't help it, like some things are just going to go bad, or you might have intentions about using certain things and things will go bad. But I always feel horrible when I throw away like bags of stuff, and especially produce. I feel like that's the biggest one that tends to go bad. But just realize there will be a little bit amount of food waste, but you're going to have a lot less food waste if you are working off of a plan of how you're going to use the groceries that you're buying. So I know it might sound super simple, and I don't mean it to be oversimplified, but really think about, like, if you make the effort and the time to put a plan together and have a grocery list that you're working off of, it will make your shopping so much quicker, and it's going to save your money. It's going to help your food dollar go a lot farther. So that's my second big reason why meal planning can help save your motherhood. And I think spouses appreciate that too. I know my husband does. When we can make our food budget go a lot farther and we're actually utilizing a lot of the things that we have, then, I think it kind of helps our whole family. Brittany, you're saying, I know when I did a list, I spend much less than just going in with my mental list. I know, same here. Sometimes I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to buy. And sometimes if I don't write it down and I go off of that mental list, I still end up buying so much more than I would if I just had a list. Just because, you're in the store and you're like, oh, that looks good, or I kind of want to try that. And not that you can't have room in your budget for those types of things, but we tend to get so distracted by everything that's available to us. And that's the other thing. Sometimes grocery shopping can feel really overwhelming just because there is so much out there and there's so many different options. So if you want to simplify grocery shopping for yourself, you definitely want to go in with some kind of plan. Otherwise, you're going to have that, well, at least for me, FOMO, like fear of missing out on, oh, that looks so good, or maybe we should try something different. And sometimes when I go into the store, especially for me, I'm a big Trader Joe's shopper. I love Trader Joe's, and we have one super close to us. And, they always come out with their seasonal things. And right now for fall, it's like pumpkin, everything. And I get excited when I see different things. But sometimes what I do is if I'm going into the store with my list and I see other things that look good that I want to try, I just kind of make a mental note for like the next week, thinking, hey, those looked really good. Maybe I can incorporate that into some meals for next week. That way I'm not getting sidetracked or spending excess money on everything that looks good. Brittany, that's really interesting. So Brittany shared, I worked retail. The stores are set up the way they are for people to spend more. And it's so true. And even if you think about like things that are in grocery stores that are at kids' eye level, right? Like my kids always happen to see things that I never really pay attention to. And then it's like, I want that, mommy, I want this. And that's the other thing, like I think when kids are shopping with you, it can become so much easier to cave into a lot of their different requests. But if your kids get into the same routine as you do, and they know like, hey, mommy has her list and this is what's on her list. And if your kids are asking for a lot of different things, that becomes a really great comment to kind of share back to them. Like, oh, this is not on mommy's list this week. Maybe we can get that next time. So that's another way that, you know, working off of a grocery list or a meal plan can be really helpful. Okay, and my third reason why meal planning can help save your motherhood or your family, or however you want to think about it, meal planning can help you maximize nutrition for your family. So this is a really important one. And again, like, you know, it's not that every meal has to be perfect. I mean, please hear me when I say, like, even as a dietitian myself, there are just nights where cooking just feels like too hard, or putting a meal together just feels too complicated, or, you know, everyone's tired. You know, there's been plenty of nights where I've just said, let's just do cereal tonight because that's all I can handle, or let's just do breakfast for dinner because, you know, that's about all I have left in my mental capacity. So, you know, meal planning is not something that means you have to perfect your nutrition or anything like that. Like, again, this is not about being rigid or being married to a certain way of eating. It's really about creating a structure for your family that actually frees up more time, more energy, more money, like we chatted about briefly. Having a structure actually gives you more freedom within that structure and within that plan. But really, when you're taking time and you're making time to put together meal ideas for your family, you are going to have a better chance of serving something that's a little more nutritious. And again, not to say that everything can't be nutritious in some way or fashion, but you know, you're more likely to put together meals that are more balanced and giving your family more variety and including different foods. And it really helps set the stage for family meals, which are super important for having and raising healthy eaters in your family and in your kids. Versus if you don't really have a plan that you're working off of, it becomes a lot easier to just, you know, kind of put together or use whatever is available. Or again, eating out can become more frequent for your family. And again, not that there's anything wrong with eating out. We definitely eat out at least once a week, I think, for us, and sometimes more. And I think even with meal planning, you can plan on, our family is going to be eating out on Friday nights or Saturday night or whatever. But if you're doing that all the time just because you don't really know what to make at home, or you don't have the things that you need to prepare for certain meals, that's going to add up. First of all, financially, right? Like, it costs more to eat out than it does to make meals at home. And your food choices, you know, again, may not be as optimal as preparing meals for your family at home. So those are kind of my three big reasons why I really encourage moms to consider meal planning. And again, I think one of the big things that pushes moms away from the idea of meal planning is feeling like, you know, it has to be like a really perfect thing. Again, like, there's so many things like on Pinterest and all over social media about meal planning and getting all my containers organized in my fridge looking so glamorous and beautiful. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I want to encourage you to rethink the way you are approaching meal planning. Meal planning doesn't have to look like that. It can be really simple. It can be as simple as, I mean, I do this. I literally open up my notes on my phone and just jot down some meal ideas that I want to use for the week. Or on a piece of paper or in my planner. It doesn't have to be fancy to get started. And it doesn't mean meal planning is different from meal prepping. And I think that's another thing that really intimidates moms sometimes. Like, when we think about meal planning, I mentioned this earlier. We think about meal prepping. Like, I don't want to be in my kitchen all day batch cooking, or, like, I don't really like doing that myself either. So don't let that deter you from starting with meal planning, because there are a lot of benefits with meal planning. And even if, things come up, like as a family, if you're going out on vacation, or if your kids have tons of activities throughout the day, meal planning doesn't mean that you can't be flexible with how you're eating. It just means that you have a plan in place that you can utilize, and that you have the groceries at home that you need to make certain meals. So let me give you some really quick tips that can help you get started with meal planning if you're kind of new to this idea, or if this is something you've wanted to try but maybe you've been avoiding for a while. And so my first tip for you is to schedule time for meal planning. Sorry. I struggle with this too. Like, I always think about it like, yeah, I need to sit down and meal plan, but things just come up inevitably. Like when you have kids and a family, that really can get pushed to the back burner, just like anything that you really have good intentions for. So my encouragement to you is to actually schedule time in your calendar to meal plan. And it can be as short as 15 minutes, at the start of the week, or before you go to the grocery store. Like whatever day you plan to go grocery shopping, really make it a point to schedule a small amount of time in your calendar to sit down and map out some meals for the week. That is really important. If you're not scheduling the time for it, it's just not going to happen. I mean, it makes it that much harder. But if you really want to try implementing meal planning in your family, schedule it in your calendar like you would any other appointment, and really try to stick to it. Ideally, it would be a time where you have a little bit of quiet to focus and to really think about, like, what do I want to incorporate for the family this week? But that's my first tip for getting started, is schedule the time in your calendar to make it happen. If you're not making time to meal plan, it's just not going to happen. I know. I mean, that's just how it is as moms. So you have to make time in your calendar like you would with any other appointment, to give yourself the space and the time to really meal plan. My second tip to getting started with meal planning is to always take inventory of what you have. This is hard too. I mean, there's been so many times that I've gone out grocery shopping and I've come home and realized, oh my gosh, I already had that, or, I could have used this instead of that. And again, if you're really wanting to save time and money on groceries, take a quick inventory of what you have. I like to do this about once a week, if possible, especially before running out to the store, because it really cuts down, again, on food waste, and helps you to utilize the things that you have. And, double check the freezer, double check your pantry, double check your fridge. And that's also a good time to throw out things that might be old and make space for the new that you're going to be bringing in with your groceries. Okay, and my third tip is to start simple and start slow. So again, I think another reason why it's easy to procrastinate or push off on meal planning is because it can feel really intimidating to try to come up with different meal ideas for a whole week, or, some people do it for a whole month. I can't do it for a whole month. Usually what I like to do is just plan out 5 days worth of meals. And we kind of eat the same or similar things for breakfast and dinners. So when I'm meal planning, I usually really only plan out like 5 dinners that I can kind of rotate through. And the thing that is important to realize too is, just because you have, a plan, like say you plan out 5 meals that you want to eat for the week, it doesn't mean you have to have that meal on that day. I mean, I guess sometimes it does, depending on what you're planning on using, but If 5 meals feels like too much, start even smaller. Try just doing 3 days at a time. Um, or 2 days, or whatever it is that you need to do to get started for yourself. Like, don't try to do too much. I think sometimes that's where we tend to get discouraged is if we do a lot of meal planning and we get into a rhythm of meal planning for a certain time, sometimes you can burn out on meal planning if you're not giving yourself enough space or breaks too. So I usually anticipate that we're going to eat out at least once. And then on one night, I try to plan on using a lot of leftovers. Or we might do breakfast for dinner on one night just to make it really simple. But I try to create space in our week for myself where I'm not putting pressure on myself to have to cook every night either, because I think that can feel discouraging too. Like as a mom, if you're like, oh my gosh, I have to cook all these meals this whole week, I think that can discourage you from meal planning. So if you're just starting out and, if you want to try this, I would really encourage you to start out really slow and start out in a way that feels realistic for you. So, maybe that means just planning out 3 dinners for the whole week and filling in the gaps wherever you need to, especially if your family is used to eating out a lot and you want to start transitioning to eating more meals at home. Start with 2 meals or something really simple. Like, make it practical for your family. And if dinners is too intimidating, try lunches or breakfast. I know sometimes it's easier to get the family together for a quick breakfast before everyone heads out the door. So I hope that makes sense. I hope this is helpful. If you're listening in, let me know what tips work for you for meal planning. And I'm just going to read through these comments really quick. Steph, thanks for joining. You shared, I do so well for a couple of weeks and then I get disorganized if I don't have a plan, and then we end up eating out a lot again. I think that's so common. I know we do that too. Sometimes you might have a plan and things, life just happens and things disrupt your intentions and your plans. But remember too, like, meal planning doesn't necessarily mean that you have to make all these meals from scratch, or that you have to have like something homemade every time that you're having a meal with your family. I mean, I meal plan around frozen foods all the time. So sometimes I am like, okay, dinner is going to be frozen pizza, and I'm just going to put together a salad to go with it. I'm going to cut up some fresh fruit, and I'm going to serve milk with it, and there you go. It's like a meal that offers some variety and some fruits and vegetables and, protein. It's offering a lot of different food groups, but it's really simple. It didn't take a lot of time or effort. I mean, frozen pizza, you can't get easier than that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So that's another thing I want you to consider too. If you are planning meals for your family, they don't have to be these elaborate things that you're making from scratch and, following all these steps just to put something on the table. It can be really, really simple. Another thing, like, I'm just sharing some really quick ideas, in the summer, and here in San Diego, it's still pretty warm. Sometimes my husband will just grill, he'll grill some chicken or steak or burgers. And that's another thing that we'll do really quick, is we just kind of have something on the grill and then putting together, a couple side dishes with some bread and butter. Again, it can be really simple dishes that you're putting together, but the important thing is that you're having some kind of plan for those things. Even the simple dishes that you can throw together, you still need to kind of anticipate serving those things and how you want to serve them to your family. So I hope this helps a little bit. I know that this can be a really big discussion in terms of meal planning and how you meal plan. And especially if you have a family with kids who all have a lot of different food preferences, that can be tricky too, and that can make meal planning really tricky. But it's the same kind of principle where you are just coming up with, 3 to 4 to 5 ideas that you are jotting down and anticipating on using for the week. And then from that plan, you put together your grocery list. So if you know, okay, we're going to do tacos this night, we're going to do grilled cheese and soup on this night, or we're going to do, breakfast for dinner on this night. That's 3 meals right there. And then from that, you can pull out what you need for groceries. But again, always make sure to kind of take inventory of what you have before you go out shopping, just to kind of maximize the groceries that you may already have on hand. I hope this helps a little bit. I know that this is a big topic, and I know that meal planning can feel like a beast to take on, but I want you to feel encouraged if, as a mom, you have struggled in this area, or you want to meal plan, but you just don't really know where to start. Just start simple and start slow and do things that feel realistic for you, okay? This is not about trying to make a perfect plan for the week. I mean, it has to be realistic, and it has to be something that fits within your family. And again, use things that you have on hand. And something that I like to do too is, you can do themed nights like Taco Tuesday or, Pizza Friday, or however it is that you like to implement things like that for your family. I think that makes it a little more fun, especially with your kids. I was going to say something and I completely forgot. So anyway, I hope this helps a little bit. I am going to share something for you guys who are watching. I am going to be having a challenge coming up soon. I'm not exactly sure when the dates are, but we are going to be hosting a challenge all about meal planning and basically how to make over your meal times. And if this is something that you need help with and you want some support with, I would love for you to join us. We're going to do a 5-day challenge and basically kind of walking you through what does it look like to meal plan? How can you meal plan? What are different meal ideas? I think sometimes too, as moms, we just kind of get burned out. It's easy to stick to the same things, and maybe your kids kind of get sick of eating the same things, or like Steph, you mentioned, I still have a hard time with snacks. Snacks are important to kind of plan out too, and making sure that you have the things that you're planning on serving your kids in your home too, so that snacks become something that's intentional and not just like a free-for-all. I know sometimes if we don't have a plan for snacks, my kids just wander in the pantry and just kind of start rummaging through everything. But if you want your snacks to be intentional, it's important to have kind of a plan going into snacks too. So all that to say, I definitely understand as a mom how difficult this can be. And really, I want you to know that meal planning can be something, it can be a tool that you can utilize for your benefit and for the benefit of your whole family. So if you're interested, I would love for you to join us for our challenge coming up soon. We're trying to solidify the dates for this, but we are basically going to take you through really easy steps that can help you make over your meal times and simplify meal planning. So if you're interested, please check out the link. It's in the comments here, and sign up to join us, and we will email you when we have the dates solidified, and we'll have a ton of goodies for you, meal planning templates, all of those good things. So I hope you can join us for that. If you have found this helpful, and if you are interested in some more videos or content around meal planning, please let me know. I would love to help you out with this, and I'm interested in hearing from you. Like, what are your questions? Where do you get stuck? You know, what aspects of meal planning feel challenging for you, or you know, again, like, where do you get stuck? Where do you need help? And I would love to bring you some more videos or content or blogs or however I can help you out with this, because from my own experience, I've learned a ton. And just in working with families, you know, I really have seen the benefits of taking charge of your family's meals by having a plan with it. So I would love to hear from you. If you can share any thoughts or ideas or questions, put your questions in the comments, and I will be sure to bring you some more content around these. Thank you, Steph. Okay, guys, I think this was a really long video, longer than I intended, but hopefully you found something that was helpful for you. And for those of you that joined live, thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to bringing you some more resources around this. And again, any questions that you have, feel free to share them in the comments. I'll be popping in to check on those, and would love to hear your suggestions so I can bring you some more information that will hopefully support you through this. All right, have a wonderful week, and I will hopefully see you guys soon. Bye.